Welcome, everyone, to NDILC's Facebook Live session. I'm Marcia Davies. I'm Chief Operating Officer of the Mortgage Bankers Association and founder of Empower, which is a women's networking group for all of the women in the real estate finance industry. NDILC stands for Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Council of the National Association of Women in Housing and Real Estate's ecosystem. Our goal is to raise the number of women leaders, grow women's employment, and empower women. These Facebook Live sessions are focused on our 10 guiding principles, and today's focus is principle number 5, know yourself. Sounds easy enough, right? Not so much. As I look back on my 30-plus career, I can honestly say it really took a long time for me to feel comfortable in my own skin, especially in the workplace. Look, I always knew that I had to show up and deliver results. As women, I think we all feel that pressure that if we're doing our job, we have to step up and do it better and really be able to stand strong. And I always knew I had to be a team player, even if those around me weren't playing as team players. I knew as a woman, I needed to make sure that I was being part of the team and exhibiting behaviors that showed that I was a team player. And because of who I am and I couldn't help myself, I knew I would always speak my mind. For better or worse, what you see is what you get. But as I navigated my career, I started to understand the importance of being truly authentic. And I started looking at my skills and how did my skills differ from those around me. And I started seeing that if I use my unique skills to deliver results and bring my creativity that would bring different ideas to the table, that I knew I would show up in the best possible way I knew how to in the workplace. I also learned the importance of making sure that when I took a new role, that role gave back to me. And what I mean by that is there are times in your career where somebody may ask you to take on additional responsibilities or promote you to a new area, and you may learn that it might not align with the types of functions that give you joy or make you excited about getting into work every day. And I'm not saying you don't take those assignments, but I say as you learn from them and you grow, really be authentic in doing the work that gives back to you and brings you joy. And perhaps that might mean sometimes you take lateral moves, or sometimes you bring on people in your organization to do some of the functions that would bring that person joy. Because for you to be authentic in the workplace, you really have to feel passionate about the work that you're doing. Otherwise, you don't show up as your best self. I also learned that as I continued to climb the ladder, there's a lot of power in being authentic in the way you lead. This is profoundly shaping who you are as a leader and what you can accomplish. So authentic leadership empowers you to draw on your strengths to bring out the best in others and those around you. It helps you be fully present, which in turn helps you strive for others to be the best they can be. Authentic leaders are purposeful in everything they do. And authentic leaders will make the biggest difference. If you think about it, when you work with somebody and they are being true to who they really are, and they're leading you in a way that you know that they are being the best that they can be, it makes you want to do the best you can for that person. So today we have several powerful women to discuss what knowing yourself means to them. And I am looking forward to having this conversation with all of them. So I'm going to kick it off with Tammy Bonnell, who is the CEO. So she's all the way at the top of Exit International Realty Corp. And Tammy, can you describe what knowing yourself means to you?
Yes, and I can actually give you a description of what I see for other people to really know what that is. You know, when you're in alignment all of us know it. When we own the day, all of us know it. You feel it when you phoned it in, and you feel it when you really actually truly owned it. And when your values are in alignment with your head and your heart, you can hang on to self-discipline and you can hang on to passion better than any other time. So you feel different. You feel completely different. And so you truly know it when you are in complete alignment. What I'm doing right now in my position, most of my job is literally seeing things in other people and helping them become their best self. And I know that's when I'm in alignment. But if I start going into too much detail work, it takes me away from that, and the fulfillment starts to disappear. So when you are in true alignment with your values and your head and your heart, you can truly hang on to your passion. You can truly hang on to that self-discipline. That's when you'll know you're heading close. And it takes all of us a little while to discover that, right? But as we get a little bit older, and I've definitely been 30 plus years in the business as well, I think that you start to find that, and you gain a lot more respect when you are being truly authentic to yourself.
Yeah, Marcia. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
Marcia,
ahead, Kelly.
I think you made a great point about the importance of authenticity in leadership. Like Tammy was mentioning, people won't follow inauthentic leaders. I mean, they're just not going to, because you can't trust them. So if you have to build teams, and most of us do, that's what we do. You build great teams that tend to work, and you try to find the people, like Tammy mentioned, that have strengths to carry on and get promoted. You've got to be able to make sure they trust you, and that you can only get by being authentic. So it is a really critical piece as you do move up the ladder and as you do get promoted to managing groups.
Well, and Kelly, I'm going to play off of that a little bit. So in your career, because you've had a very successful career and you've had to navigate a lot of different challenges, as you were leading your teams, did you ever have a time where maybe your alignment with principles and how you wanted to run your group, and perhaps what leadership wanted to make priorities or whatever it would be, got a little out of whack? And if so, how did you navigate that?
Yeah, 30 years at UPS. Yeah, I ran into a lot of those situations for sure. And certainly, it's a tough thing to get through sometimes. But what you have to realize is you can take the message, perhaps, that the senior leadership has, and you can make it your own. And when you truly believe in the message, and then you're portraying that to your teams, you get much, much better success. So oftentimes, it's realizing that my presentation is going to be different, especially in a male-dominated company like UPS was, right? As a female, I just presented differently, I spoke differently, I talked differently, and I had somewhat different values as well. But being vulnerable enough to say I didn't know when I didn't know, and then getting help, right? Asking for help, it makes all the difference to your team. So I think anyone who starts to rise to the top is going to run into those situations, but they have to make it their own. Now, if it's unethical or something like that, obviously that's a whole different piece.
When do you think, Kelly, I'm going to stick with you for a minute. When do you think you truly discovered who you were in the workplace and felt comfortable? Because again, you were mentioning it was so male dominated that a lot of times we have this, we have to be very careful about making sure that we are true to ourselves, but also there's a culture that you have to adapt to, for a lack of a better word. And when did you really feel like you were able to know yourself and show up in the way you wanted to show up instead of navigating kind of the landscape?
It takes a while. I think, like Tammy said, it takes a while. I think when I became vice president, right, that's when I really kind of stepped into it and knew that I had it. Up until that point, yeah, you're constantly trying to kind of mold perhaps yourself and try to fit in and all of those things. But at some point you realize, no, I'm going to do it this way because it's been successful. And that's why I've been promoted, right? They recognize it's successful too. So I think, there's kind of a coming together And again, I'm so proud of where UPS is today because it's many more females at the table. But back then, I was literally the only female in the room. And yeah, you know, you're kind of watchful about how you say things perhaps or what you do. But I got to say, I had a good group of mentors around me as well, male mentors that really helped. So it takes, you know, it takes a long time and you have to feel comfortable in your role, like Tammy said, right? Before you can portray that to others as well.
Yes, yes. And I think people can tell, right? People can tell when you're being authentic, and people can tell when you are trying to fit in, for a lack of a better word. Rebecca, I'm going to turn to you. You're president and CEO of the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, and you must be very busy as the pandemic has taken its toll on a lot of people and the credit that a lot of people have. Yeah, and you're very successful. You've had an incredible and continue to have an incredible, successful career. But there were times when some things in your career went a little bit sideways. And during that difficult time, you stood strong, you knew yourself, and you really navigated through them. Can you share with us how you navigated those tough times and continued to stay true to who you are?
Yeah, no, I think it all starts with authenticity, by the way. So I want to go back to that because I really think that that is so key. Know yourself, be authentic, trust yourself and your instincts, because challenges, you know, all of us have challenges every day. Every day we run into challenges one way or another. And the degree of challenge sometimes is different, but, you know, challenges can really become something bigger than they are on the surface if we let them. And I really believe that, you know, to be true to yourself is to really head ahead, like look at those challenges, understand the challenges, and really understand why those challenges are there. Are you putting those challenges up in front of yourself? Is someone else sort of helping put challenges? So it's really important then to back up and be positive and proactive, because I think that, you know, as we go through challenges to either further our career or hire a high potential team, or, you know, surround yourself with smart and great people, it's really, really important to sort of have a North Star. My North Star always was, I want to give back. I want to help people around me. I want to get my job done well. I want to be ethical and have high integrity. And even the biggest challenges will shake that foundation. Mm-hmm. So you really have to step back, surround yourself with very positive people. Desiree was one of my confidants during a really hard time, and others, and trust them, because they will help you through those challenging times. They will give you good advice. And, you know, I would say don't go to one person to get advice is the other thing. It's really, really important to surround yourself with a lot of people and get a lot of different pieces of advice so you can make the decision for yourself. So I think that's really important.
That is really important. Tammy, did you want to add to that?
I just wanted to add, I think that you need to surround yourself with positive people that bring the best out in you, but you also have to surround yourself with some people that keep you grounded, that keep you here on earth and help you to face reality so that you don't grow too fast. It's great to work your way up if that's an interest of yours to be able to do, but you want to work up so that you're qualified all the way through. And so having people around you that keep you grounded, and for several reasons, even somebody reminding you, our chief operating officer at our organization reminds me to take breaks, right? You know, you need to slow down, you need to cool it a little bit, you need to take a break. I can feel your intensity, right? That it's good to have people like that around you too, so that you have some form of a balance, and it's a good ballast. So it's not just people that lift you up. Anybody that's negative, get rid of, but a little bit of grounding goes a long way.
Yeah. And can I just add one thing to that, Tammy, because that is so important. It's really understanding where people are coming from too. How do they make decisions? What do they need? Like I continuously go back to something I learned, you know, 25 years ago in my career, which is different people coming together make better decisions and lift you up. So, where I am very linear in my decision making and a little bit of research, other people are different. Other people have different life experiences, and embrace those differences to make yourself better too.
Right. Diversity of thought is so important. And I do think knowing yourself is having the confidence to surround yourself with a bunch of different perspectives, a bunch of different superstars, anything you can to make the results the best that they can be for the organization. And I think that's really key. I want to talk a little bit to Erica, who, first of all, Erica, thank you for your service and for all you do. I know you have a foot in both worlds, right? You're in the military as well as your CEO. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you are able to know yourself as you toggle in between these two worlds? Is that difficult or is it seamless? What's it like? And
Sure. Without going too much into too much detail. So I joined at 19, and we all know as 19-year-old young women, we're trying to figure out the world and figure out ourselves. And that takes years of trials and tribulations. And then you again get in your 40s, and I think you get it, where you're at. 50s, and 60s continues to kind of hone in on who you are. But I had served 11 years active duty, and through that process, I was always raised to know myself to a certain point and be confident in my abilities. But getting out was an interesting transition, and I know a lot of veterans face this, and I've spoken to this a lot, especially women. I noticed that for the first 3 years, fitting back into a society that was so different from where I came from, which was, of course, very male dominated, very blunt, the kinds of leadership styles you learn in the military. And then when I got out and I tried to use those same types of styles on the outside, men didn't like it, nor did women. It was just too abrasive. We're just to the point and not a lot of fluff. And I noticed that I started to withdraw a little bit and had to really get outside myself and figure out how to fit in on the outside. Men don't usually have to deal with this as much as women veterans, because when men serve and they get out, they're seen as that warrior, and it's okay to be strong. But women, and the biases we deal with, you have to be a little bit more warm, and you have to smile a little bit better. And, there's different terminologies that go with a very strong, assertive woman. And anyway, I just learned to figure out how to communicate with, I would say, civilians, what the language of business is. I got an MBA, so I can kind of learn that world in a way that I didn't learn in the military. So yeah, I worked corporate, hated it, like most veterans. After 2 corporate jobs, said this is not for me. And then I started my own business, and 40% of us start our own businesses because we have great skill sets to do so. And over my journey, I've been very successful. I've enjoyed the trials and tribulations. And then 7 years later, I decided to come back in as a reservist, again, to teach the next generation of cadets, because they had just lifted the ban for women to serve in all combat roles. And since I've been there, done that, I figured they can hear from me. So, as much as I thought I knew myself, going from one culture to another culture was a little difficult. I always tell veterans that expect that difficulty for the first 3 years when you get out, and know that it's going to be a rocky road. And here's what the statistics say, but also know that if you get past those 3 years, we do make great citizens. We volunteer more in our community. We run and win for office more so. We do better as small business owners. We do good in corporations if there's a good safety net of other veterans to talk to and have that peer-to-peer conversation. So yes, I do have my feet in both worlds, and I think it makes me quite unique. The beauty is I don't have to do too much as a reservist, so I'm not fully immersed into the culture. I can kind of step in and out. So thanks for asking.
yeah, well, and you play right into what I say, using your unique talents to be the best that you can be and show up the best way possible, because you will lead in an authentic way, but with a different perspective, because you have these two unique worlds that have come together. I want to talk to Teresa a little bit. You are the head of diversity and inclusion, correct?
I am.
And so can you describe in the work that you do or your own personal experiences, some of the challenges that as we try to create diverse cultures, right, in organizations and get to true inclusion, how is it for people who feel like they are on the outside, not on the inside? How do they become their authentic selves in the workplace? And how do we make sure our workplaces are accepting when people show up as their authentic selves?
And again, thank you so much. And I really, what a great question. You know, one of the biggest things that we see, and I'm going to go back to Erica's comment about culture, because one of the things and authenticity and how difficult it is, because I think that's really important to mention, and then we'll bring in the diversity piece. But, you know, you talk about even fitting in and, you know, wanting to make sure that your voice is heard. And also that intersectionality of being a woman, but then on top of that, being a Latina, raised in a very dominant male household, where this is really common for many Latinos across the country, Latinas, that we were raised with always kind of being subservient to the male role, right? To father, to, I mean, I would get slapped in the face easily if I ever spoke back to my father. So these are the way that we grew up every single, and this is not uncommon. This is very normal with a lot of Latino families. And so, you know, for me to become genuine and I really had a lot of struggle. It was difficult for me. It is still difficult for me, you know, to speak my voice. And even though I have my genuine self, and I did finally realize, hey, I really need to voice it. But there's still that part of me that certainly takes a back seat sometimes when somebody that is a dominant male says something to me and I have to stand up. Now, my husband would not agree with that totally. He'd say, no, you got a pretty loud voice, honey, but but it's certainly something that happens. So I just want everybody in the audience to know that that is a commonality among our family. So we just have to speak up very comfortably and be very genuine and really understand that it's okay and I love what you said, Kelly, about, you're doing it your way. This is how you present the information, and you have to be passionate, obviously, or it doesn't work. From a perspective is really, how do you start the conversation? How do we begin in the diversity inclusion space in an organization? You really start the conversation because you really need to be comfortable, and people need to be open-minded and have that ability to have those discussions, because a lot of times people are like taken aback. And it's really important that we start to hear and listen and take surveys. And then you can't improve what you can't measure. That's Gino Blafari's biggest comment at all. So we really need to start to take surveys within our organizations to really know, where are we? Do people feel that they belong? Do they feel that they're part and that they have an inclusive environment and that they can be their genuine selves? And if they cannot, then we need to change that. And how do we go about doing it? And it is by training. I really, truly believe that training plays a huge role in it, because, you've got to train on unconscious bias. You got to train on inclusive language. You got to train people, because until you know something, you cannot understand that you're affecting someone else. And sometimes you don't realize, hey, by not inviting me, you're leaving me out. That makes me feel, by not adding my email name, if we're always constantly forgetting, right? When you're sending an email to your leadership and yet I'm left out, what does that say to me? Even if you accidentally forgot, or if you're talking to someone directly and the leadership, up to me, and then someone that you think is more important, you just, those are the signals, right, that we got to change. And you do it through education, through conversation, and then if there are bad apples, by saying, hey, you don't fit. You're not accepting of other people. We need to take you to training. And if you can't correct that behavior, then you really don't belong with our company or our organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great perspectives. And Tasha, I'm going to turn to you as a professional in the HR field. do you have anything to add to what Teresa said? Any other insights on how we can make sure that our organizations are being inclusive and encouraging those that work with us to be authentic and comfortable being able to have their voice heard?
Yeah, well, first, Teresa, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Everything you said, it's like we say those same things at Dalpad all the time, and not just myself who runs HR, and one of my direct employees is our head of diversity, but thankfully our entire leadership team as well. So we have a very progressive company, and so I haven't joined there by accident. You know, it's a place that I went to intentionally because of their values. But one of the things I'll say is, you know, for anyone listening who runs HR or just an employee in a company that you want to improve sort of the inclusivity and the approach there, the things I think that great companies do, they really look end to end. Every single aspect of an employee life cycle is highly scrutinized for inclusivity. So from everywhere from how the job description is written to where you post those jobs, you know, are the same demographics looking at those postings, to the interview cycle. Do we have a diverse panel of people on that interview panel? Have they all been well trained, and do we trust that they, you know, approach this honor of interviewing others and assessing skill with all of the you know, integrity that we expect in that process? So we do unconscious bias training for everybody, but very specifically, you know, you must have taken it to be on a panel. And then, like, looking through all of it, just like what you can't measure, you can't improve, is our philosophy with sort of DE&I. We measure everything that happens, you know, so ensuring that in our performance management, again, we've really fine-toothed that process. We do annual performance review cycles. So there is a place where often bias creeps in and it's hard to see. And so some of the ways that we measure how successful we're being in our pursuit of treating all humans equally and giving equal opportunity to all humans is, you know, so, you know, we measure attrition. That's sort of a lagging indicator, right? But we measure attrition. So our people of color, our veterans, our disabled individuals attriting, leaving our company at a higher level than sort of, you know, the traditional, you know, not the underrepresented folks, right? So that's one way we measure, but we also measure on a whole bunch of other things. So we measure on employee happiness. We call that ENPS. We look at that from a DE&I lens as well. So, you know, what populations feel most supported? And we have very specific questions in these surveys. As you were talking about, Teresa, surveys are a really important tool. We use them all the time. And the data is always combed through to see where we might have blind spots and where employees maybe don't feel supported. With best of intentions, we can't be too hard on ourselves in that. And we have to be very vigilant in saying, shoot, we rolled out this program, but somehow it didn't land right. And so that's what the survey is showing us. So let's correct. You know, you can't be too proud of the work that you've done in something. You have to be able to be flexible and adaptable and change in the pursuit of supporting all employees. We analyze pay parity, which is a really big one. And it's been a huge push in Silicon Valley, thank goodness. But we look at it every quarter to see, you know, whether females and people of, you know, from underrepresented groups are all being paid, you know, at the same level for the same role and level of contribution, right? We look at things like upward mobility. Are females being promoted and others at the same rate as their male and Caucasian counterparts? So there's so much we do on this, and that's really why I'm at Dalpad, because I truly believe it's a company that embraces, doesn't just talk the talk and send out a couple tweets here and there, but really has invested in this organization to make Dalpad just as inclusive as we can be. And the other reason why I'm excited kind of moving forward, and then I'll stop talking and I can talk a lot, is this whole ability to work from anywhere. So finding talent everywhere, I think really opens up the opportunity for us to be able to hire from these underrepresented teams that we really have wanted to in the past. But, you know, it's like, it feels like a knife fight in the Bay Area to find the diversity that we're looking for. but it's not that case if you can go anywhere in the world. So that has helped us a lot. And we're finding outstanding talent in all of the areas where we used to kind of struggle. So that's been exciting.
It sounds like creating the culture that you're talking about, where there is such an emphasis on equality and all voices being heard, helps you and the employees at Dialpad show up knowing themselves and being more comfortable, you know, speaking their mind and being who they are. So I
Absolutely.
think that,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that that is all really, really amazing and great.
There's-
It's very progressive, right? That we are looking at ways to make sure all voices are heard because, you know, as I said, and Tammy and Rebecca and all, right, it takes a while for you to feel comfortable in a workplace really speaking up and, you know, showing who you are and being authentic, because you have to have a safe work environment to do that. And it sounds like you're really creating one.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn to, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing for the female listeners is that data shows that women do not apply for jobs unless they have 100% match for the skills that are being posted. And that's not the same for men. Men will apply for jobs where they have 50% of the skills needed for the role. So one kind of final thought from me is, as a female, what I've always encouraged my team, male, female, doesn't matter, is just take risks. You know, like if there's one thing that I could have told myself 20 years ago, it would have been to take as many risks as possible, swing for the fences, go for any job that's being offered, forced to be interviewed for it, like just push it. And right now, thankfully, we're in a position, you know, sort of socially, that it's acceptable to push to really advocate for yourself in business. And I think it's incredibly important. And you know, what I tell my daughter and my sons is, you know, when you get into the work world, always have 3 job offers. You know, even if you're just delighted in your current job, always have 3 other companies and roles that you would love to do. It'll make you better in your current job. It'll just make you take more risks, to be a better leader, to lead without fear, you know, and those things make all of us better leaders.
Couldn't agree more. Risk taking is so important, especially as you move up and want to expand the skill set that you bring to the table. I'm going to turn to our fearless leader, Desiree. You and I have known each other for several years now, and a common theme that we both spoke of when we first met was that it took a while, right, in our careers to really know ourselves, really be comfortable in being who we are, right? It wasn't, you know, 30 years ago, again, it was something that we had to really work towards. Can you tell us a little bit about when you really knew yourself and felt comfortable showing up as authentically as possible? You're on mute.
What an incredible panel today. This is unbelievable. And each one just gets better and better. And I got to say that, just to go back to Tasha real quick, that Dialpad every week, if not every month, gets an award for being the best place to work, the most happy place to work, and things like that. So thank you, Tasha, for that. And those who are listening, she just literally joined last night. So this is the first exposure she's had to everyone on the call. So this is a great way of saying, hey, dynamically put in this place, right? Talk about the synergies and how it works. So it's fantastic. So to answer your question, Marcia, yeah. So I honestly, because of Rebecca, Rebecca's the one who actually said, Desiree, let's start the NDILC. Let's get this going. Let's get it off the floor. And this was 6 years ago, because of her issues that she was going through, because of the synergies of how we were working together and how the different plays that were not quite working right. And I had met Marcia, and I had met several of you. Everyone I know here on the panel, except Kelly and Tasha, I've known for at least 5 to 10, 15, 20 years. And so not until 2 years ago did I really find myself, I guess the best way of putting it, that I found out through the support of this council and others, and the women who had been here before on the council, that I realized that my talent set and what I could do is, instead of holding myself back, I needed to take that risk and go for it and define those places. I mean, we hear so much about, women not getting, a seat at the board table and not being part of it. So we started back in 2008. We were part of the, the SB 82060, helped push the get women on boards. And then all of a sudden, literally in the last 2 weeks, I got an opportunity to go place over 20 women on different boards. And, so things like that happen in an environment that I would have never have thought, just because of my upbringing and how I've mitigated the different changes, that why me? What's special about me? When in fact that my resources and my ability to know so many different aspects and different verticals and go places that no one else would go, whether it be different conferences like Marcia. When I first met Marcia, I literally went right to her during the event. She's like, "You flew all the way out here just to meet me in person. You went beeline to me." And that happened. But it was because I want to connect with the best of the best in each of the different verticals, so I could learn to create something that would not be you're only strong as your weakest link. And to do that meant that I needed to learn each of the different verticals so I can stand. So when people look to who we are and what we do, I'm able to navigate something that very uniquely positions me in places that, how do you have this Rolodex and people that are in the system that you're here, but you're there too. And that didn't come until 2 years ago, when each one of you and others said, "Desiree, you're unique. People don't think like you. You're out there. You're that intersectional, intergenerational, radical self that you bring to the table. You're not completely orthodox. You have a completely different way of doing things, but that what makes you know that I'm authentic and real, because I just say it like it is and I go at it. Sometimes I need to filter sometimes, but that's okay, because that's my style." So either you're on that fence that you love me or don't. Like, look at Kelly. Kelly, I've known Bobby Clayton from UPS for years, and I'm like, "You kept me from Kelly, who lives in my backyard, and you didn't do this." And that is what makes, I have the ability to embrace each one of you and say thank you from the bottom of my heart to let me shine because of your support. Like Tammy talks about the tribe, has been unbelievable.
That's great. Well, thank you for your leadership. We
Marcia,
couldn't do it
say-
without you.
Can I say one thing?
Before you jump in, we have time for really one round, one question I want each one of you to answer. So I'm going to start with you, Kelly, so that you can jump in and say what you're going to say to Desiree, and then answer my question, and then I'll round robin it. So Kelly, the question I'm going to ask all of you is, what do you wish you would have known when you were 25 that you know now? So what would you tell your 25-year-old self about knowing yourself that you know now?
Okay, first I have to say, Desiree, yeah, you are a connector. That's what I call you, a connector, because you connect all of us. So, congrats to you and kudos to you for doing that, because it's really a great skill to have. Mm-hmm. And then to Tasha, in 1982, we never heard of employee happiness survey. So I tell you, never took one as I was going up through the ranks. And that's probably it, Marcia, right? What I learned was, don't take yourself so seriously. Because you know what? Bring some humor in. People work better when there's laughter. Laughter releases stress. It creates more energy. Just don't take yourself so seriously. That's what I learned as I went through my career, and I wish I would have known it at 25.
That's great, and I totally agree. Rebecca, what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Oh gosh, it's really important to build bridges with people and bring others along. Because all boats rise in high tide.
That's excellent too. Tasha, what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Well, a lot of things, but I'll try to limit this. I think I already touched on it. Risk taking is one that I think is just really, it can just change your life in a profound way. So if you do little things that are outside of your comfort zone every day, it'll change the trajectory of your life, like I said. And the other thing I think that for just me personally, I can sometimes I don't know, like I'm always over analyzing like how I'm coming off, and I'm like in my head as I'm saying things, and I'm wondering how everyone else is interpreting it, and do I seem too much of a know-it-all? Like all these words and like inner talk in my head all the time. I would say just like try to be in the moment and enjoy what you're doing. You know, like I have had such luck being as successful as I am. But there were long periods of time where I didn't totally enjoy it. And I wish I could take back some of those times and just like be in the moment, congratulate myself a little bit, and not let the little voice beat me up all the time.
Yes, that little voice in our head can be somewhat distracting, if not very distracting. I think that's great advice. Erica, what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Kind of like what she said, lots of things, but I'll say, don't let other people's bias affect your life personally, and that's their problem. Focus your energy elsewhere.
That's very insightful. Tammy, you're up.
Two things. One, mistakes aren't fatal. I think that our young selves wanted to be such a perfectionist, especially our era. There were so few females in the roles we were in. And so you felt like you needed to know everything and be perfect before you launched anything. And so definitely number one, mistakes aren't fatal. Make as many as you possibly can because you grow from each one. And if you can really understand that, it will really make a true difference. But also listen to your gut. My gut told me a lot of times, it's your head and your heart connecting. And my gut told me a lot of times to do something, to act on something, to try something, to say something. And I didn't because of the way I was raised and the surroundings I was in. And, looking back, I wish I had.
Right. I do believe when that little inner voice is telling you something that comes from your gut, it never lets you down. So I think that's great advice as well.
And I've
Teresa,
definitely learned that now.
Yeah. I've learned it too late as well.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, that is so important, that gut instinct that you get, even when it's situations where it's like in safety scenarios, you have to trust your gut and not let others influence you. But that's mine, is really know who you are and don't let others tell you who you are or who you have to be or who you want to be. You go after what you think you want to be and don't let others tell you can't do it. So that's my biggest thing, because 25 years, I could have been doing so much more because I didn't trust that imposter. And I love that you've written it in the, you think you're not good enough to do it. And then you realize, oh my God, why didn't I do that? I let somebody else tell me that I wasn't good enough. And I could have just learned the steps and what I need to do to get there. So that is the number one for me.
Yes, imposter syndrome is a real thing. And women have a lot of times, as we grow in our careers, the imposter syndrome gets louder and louder in our heads. So telling our 25-year-old selves to, shut that down is really important. Well, Desiree, I'm going to ask you that question, but also I want to thank everyone here who was on the panel. We're almost out of time. I know you're going to wrap us up. So what would you tell your 25-year-old self?
Thank you. This has been incredible. And thank you for hosting it, Marcia. To be honest, I want to piggyback on Tasha's comment is that at my 25-year-old self is not hang on every word. I mean, I've gotten much better, but it used to be, did I say that? Oh my gosh, did you think that? Is that what they're going? And that was my biggest fear as I went up the chain. My 25-year-old self, I'd say, ask more questions and not worry about the delivery. Just get up and do it. Because when you're upstage, and Marcia will know this, that every time I go to any conference or go anywhere, if I'm on the panel, if I'm on the floor, wherever, I'm always asking questions, because people are around you and hearing you, and they get to see your authentic self, and they get to see your value add, and they get to, they come together. So ask questions, get to know more, because then you get to learn, because people will gravitate to you, especially when you align in their mission. So that's the biggest thing for me, and not worry about so much about the fundamentals, but just be who you are to ask. So thank you. This is so awesome. It's fantastic. So next month it is the number 6 is speak out It's going to be on May 6th is our next NDILC principle. So for everyone, if you don't mind, please, is that this is for Know Yourself. So everyone who's watching this is going to go on YouTube, Anchor, iTunes, all the different platforms besides Interviews platform. Make sure you tag NDILC principle and Know Yourself, and make sure that if you know someone that's going through something that you'd like to talk about it, this is where we can amplify and grow the story, because it's a legacy of storytelling that we need to get out there. So for everyone, please be safe and stay healthy. And I'm so happy that this came, and this is phenomenal. And as we grow, because we only have, believe it or not, 5 more principles to go. And these are monthly principles. So every day, think of who you know to know yourself and can compliment on that. So thank you all for having a beautiful day, and we'll all see each other later.
Bye-bye,
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.